Okay, hey guys. This is our second recording for Frankenstein. Had a little bit of technical difficulty, so I apologize for the tardiness of this recording, but I'll get it up on Classroom as soon as possible so you can have it, I guess, listened to by the time you go to class or come to class tomorrow. Okay, so today's topic is Frankenstein commentary, chapters 4 through 7. So we're going to start with 4, and I've kind of got it sectioned off again like I did last time. We're going to start with the pursuit of knowledge. All right, this directly relates back to our essential question and our enduring understanding that sometimes the pursuit of knowledge can lead to one's demise. Okay, so beginning of chapter 4, we see Victor Frankenstein completely consumed with his pursuit of knowledge. He says on page 45, um, let's see here, that he applied his as I applied so closely, it may be easily conceived that my progress was rapid. My ardor was indeed the astonishment of the students, and my proficiency that of the masters. So um, his professors were really impressed with his progress because he was so, he was so involved with his studies, and it kind of consumed his life, and which is why he was able to progress quickly and further than the other students. Um, he doesn't talk with his family anymore. He's completely forgotten about them, and he's just devoted himself entirely to his studies. He says on page 46 that he thought about returning to his friends and native town, but then an incident happened. And the incident was the driving question that I have written up here. Whence did the principle of life proceed? Where does life come from? Is basically what he's asking himself, which would have been considered blasphemous for Mary Shelley to even write about this, because the church's answer was, of course, God. And how dare you question the fact that God has created humans and created life, even to propose a different theory, or even to just ask the simple question, even if, she was a Christian, in fact, and say, where does life come from? That in itself is questioning God and goes directly against what the church teaches. So um, they were very strict in how you express curiosity about your religion. You were kind of just supposed to listen, do what you're told, and don't ask questions about what you're told. Okay, so chapter 4 goes on. He becomes obsessed with creating human life. He goes to the charnel houses and goes into the graveyards, which would seem really super scary to most of us. But to him, he said, graveyards to me were just a place where you kept, like dead people. It wasn't any sort of big deal. It's just where people's bodies decayed in the ground. And this would have been because he wasn't exposed to any sort of nightmarish images or any ghost stories or stupid horror films that are always filmed in graveyards at night and all of that kind of thing. So he wouldn't have been familiar with that, and so he saw really no big deal about going and basically robbing graves for corpses. Um, Let me see here. He says on page 47, he's kind of a little bit more frenzied. He said, what had been the study of desire of the wisest men since the creation of the world was now within my grasp. He was so close to creating human life. I almost think about how, the scientists who created the first clone must have felt. I mean, don't you think that they would have felt the same way? This frenzied like aspect of knowing that you were going to create this living, breathing object. And this may be a little controversial, but I'm going to compare it almost to pregnancy, because people get in their head like, oh my goodness, I've created this life, and it's almost this kind of like almost power surge, and you have this overprotective feeling of, you know, going to all extremes to protect this being that you have created and have protected for 9 months and all of that kind of thing. So, anyways, um, Frankenstein, in essence, was kind of going through this like whole I want a child. Ugh, I hate to dumb it down to that, but I mean, he was wanting something to worship him as its creator, and he says so. Let's see here later in the chapter. Um, he says so on the next page, I believe. Yeah, a new species would bless me as its creator and source. Many happy and excellent natures would owe their being to me. No father could claim the gratitude of his child so completely as I should deserve theirs. And that's because he is taking, pieces of human life, basically, or what was once human life, and creating something basically from scratch. So this here is where the controversy with Mary Shelley begins. Many people, maintain that Victor Frankenstein is playing God, and it is too close to a religion to be taught in schools. Okay, so the change in diction that I want to note is also on page 48. There at the bottom, he says, who shall conceive the horrors of my secret toil as I dabbled among the unhallowed damps of the grave or tortured the living animal to animate the lifeless clay? You think of all of these really dark images and really gothic images. And so it's very reflective of Victor's personality change and how he is obsessed with this creature and creating this creature in this gothic kind of dark sense of life, basically. So you just have some more gothic language. Pay attention to diction because it comes into play a lot more later on. Okay, pathetic fallacy. Um, this is my favorite thing to talk about. I love talking about pathetic fallacy, and I love talking about pathetic fallacy in Frankenstein because it's everywhere. It's all throughout, but it's very prevalent in starting in chapter 5. So, of course, it was on a dreary night of November that the creature finally came to life. Of course, it has to be a dreary night. I mean, what horror movie do you know that was filmed, in the broad daylight in a sunny meadow with bunnies frolicking? You don't see that. It's always night. It's usually kind of dreary or somber and things like that. And it being in November, it would have been during the rainy season in Switzerland, and so cold, rainy, nasty kind of weather. So we have that. And we'll come back to the creation of the creature here in a minute. I just want to talk about pathetic fallacy. When Clerval comes, he starts to enjoy the springtime and nature, and he's out in the sunshine a lot. And so we have this kind of joyous time in Frankenstein's life due to the fact that his friend has kind of basically rescued him from his own demise. And then at the end, or I mean, yeah, towards the end of 7, we have the sublime power of the storm. So Victor is, he's upset, he's sad about losing his brother, and it's kind of mixed with those emotions of coming home again, and everything has kind of changed, but he still feels a strong connection to his hometown. Um, and then so he goes out in the boat by himself and is just has that isolationist view of the romantics within nature, but nature is not this calm, comforting force. It's ragged, it's raw, it's storming, lightning, thunder, and all of this kind of thing. Victor has to take cover. He has to get out of his boat. Um, and so it shows just like the awesome power of nature in that scene. And then, of course, that's when he sees the creature illuminated by the lightning. So that all plays a key role in these 3 chapters. It's pathetic fallacy. Okay, let's go back a little bit to, let's see here, the creation. Okay, so did you ever see the words, it's alive? No, you don't, because no one says it. That's completely made up by pop culture, and along with the character of Igor. He doesn't exist. Quit looking for him. He's not in this book. That is all entertainment um, additions, I guess. Okay, so we've been waiting for months. I mean, Victor's been waiting for months for this creation to come to life. He finally does. He looks at him. I love this. I saw the dull yellow eye of the creature open. It breathed hard, and a convulsive motion agitated its limbs. This is the first description we have of the creature. And poor Victor Frankenstein was completely appalled by what he had created. He'd created this ugly monster. Basically, he'd used all of these great parts of human life and from the corpses, and thinking that by combining all of these things he would be a beautiful creature, but it just makes him even more ugly and terrifying to look at. It says, how can I describe my emotions at this catastrophe, or how delineate the wretch whom with such infinite pains and care I had endeavored to form. His limbs were in proportion, and I selected his features as beautiful, beautiful, great God. His yellow skin scarcely covered the work of muscles and arteries beneath. His hair was of a lustrous black and flowing, his teeth of a pearly whiteness, but these luxuriances only formed a more horrid contrast with his watery eyes, that seemed almost the same color as the dun white sockets in which they were set, his shriveled complexion and straight black lips. Um, so the creature was ugly. He was terrifying to look at, and Victor wanted to have nothing more to do with him. He was completely overcome by his fear and his disgust with the creature that he runs into his bedroom, and after pacing his room, he falls into the bed and falls asleep, only to be awakened by the creature who is holding the curtain back, because they had four-poster type beds. Remind me in class, and I'll show you what a four-poster bed, or you can look it up on Google, looks like. But anyways, he's holding up the curtain and he's looking at Victor, and he almost like has this like sort of grin on his face, and he's just sitting there looking at Victor. And he says, let's see here on page 52, he says, he might have spoken, but I did not hear. One hand was stretched out, seemingly to detain me, but I escaped and rushed downstairs. So this is the last moment that Victor sees the creature before Clerval comes, and then 2 years pass, and until he sees him again. So anyways, Victor, completely disgusted by his creature. The creature, we don't know how he feels at this moment, or if he feels, or anything like that, but we can kind of just, we can make our own assumptions about that. I'm not going to say too much. Okay, so then we have the arrival of Clerval. Clerval arrived in the carriage just as Frankenstein has spent his night in dismay, and so he meets him at the carriage. He brings him up to his room, and Clerval can tell that there is something definitely wrong with his dear friend. And so he, after Frankenstein falls into a sort of fit, Clerval nurses him back to health and helps him kind of be restored to his old self. Clerval, he's in pursuit of knowledge as well. His father, as you read in this chapter, did not want him to go to school. He felt like it was completely useless. He has an allusion to the Vicar of Wakefield, excuse me, by Thomas Hardy, in it where he says, "Oh, you know that life carried on, and I didn't know anything about Greek or Greece." So he's saying the fact that he didn't have any sort of what am I trying to say? Excuse me. The fact that he didn't have any sort of outside knowledge, there you go, or knowledge about the outside world, didn't affect him in his business. He said that he made it just fine, and that Henry would as well. Henry finally convinced him that he needed to know more about the world, and so then he went to college with Frankenstein. He, though, wanted to study more of a literary aspect. He wanted to look at languages of the East, so he felt like he would be better versed in trade deals with them. Okay, so like I said, he's in pursuit of knowledge as well, but it's very different. He's not consumed with his knowledge. He is passionate about it, but he doesn't let it consume his life. And then, like I said, he restores Victor to his former self. Okay, letters from home. Elizabeth, she's clearly concerned about Victor's health. She knows that it's not like him to not write. You could imagine she probably feels really hurt that he hasn't written to her. I mean, she probably felt like she meant a lot to him whenever he left, and then all of a sudden it's like he had forgotten about her. Um, and then she uses the word hour quite a bit in her letter. Um, it really makes it sound like she and Victor are already married. She says, our Ernest, which, I mean, Ernest is actually Victor's brother. And then she says, our dear William. So she makes these like little sweet little references that almost kind of make her think of, I don't know, make me think that she's wanting to play house, or that she's wanting to be a wife very, very soon. She also, let's see here, she talks about Justine coming to their family. Justine is the servant that works for their family, but like she made very clear, servants in Switzerland or in Geneva were very, very different from servants in Britain or in France. They were considered to be part of the family, just kind of like a little extended branch of the family. So Justine lives with them. And then at the end, Elizabeth mentions these little marriages that of all of these people that are in their town. It's almost, you kind of can take that as a hint, like, okay, hurry up, come home from university so we can get married just like all of these other people. And then he gets a letter from his father, which of course becomes the bearer of bad news. It contains all of the information about William's death and all of the agony that they're feeling, and he calls for Victor to come home immediately. So, talking about the murder. So, our first murder is William, or our first death, really. Um, well, actually, he'd be our second death since the mother died first. William, he's very cherub-like. He has these curly ringlets of hair. He's um, Elizabeth's pride and joy almost, even though she's not his mother. She's of no relation to him at all, but she still takes care of him while he's there at the house, and she would have basically been like a surrogate mother to him. Um, the fact that he is angel-like or cherub-like exacerbates the injustice of his death. The fact that he's such an innocent, beautiful little boy only makes his murder worse and his murderer even more contemptible. Okay, so William was the name of Mary Shelley's first child who died. Um, he died while they were in Italy. She tried to save him, but he came down with a fever that they could not cure. Okay, so there's definitely a connection there. Um, Big question. Did the creature kill him? I would like to hear your thoughts whenever we come to class and talk about this. And I want to know why you think Victor is so sure that the creature killed him. I mean, he sees the creature illuminated by the lightning on the summit of the mountain, and he is completely convinced that the creature has traveled to Geneva to kill William. So, anyways, I want to know what you think. Do you think he's the killer? Justine is the primary suspect because she has the locket, that incriminating piece of evidence in her pocket. She's at the mercy of, excuse me, she's at the mercy of the justice system at this point. Look at that word justice, Justine. It's very similar, and that is for a purpose, I promise. So in the next chapter, we'll see if Justine is convicted of William's murder or if she is proven innocent by the justice system. That's kind of where we left um, left the end of the chapter there. So hopefully we will be on track on Friday and we can discuss this. So that's all I have.